Good morning on the West Coast and good afternoon on the East Coast. My name is John Witt, and I'm the host of Better Business Results, 30 Minutes to Better Business Results. I am on set at the new Market Mover TV location in Yorba Linda, California this morning. We've got Roy Moss on the line with us today, and he's actually in my office. It's a little bit different than what it is normally. We're here to help the small business community and the small and medium-sized business community become a little bit better, a little bit more effective by developing 3 action items each day, each week, to help us move our business, advance it faster. We know that there are 53 million freelance contractors in the United States. We know that there are literally thousands of small business owners that have been bumped from the ranks of the corporate fields so that they can, and they've gone out to start their own business. And again, our goal here, and bringing in guests and demonstrating ideas, concepts, and philosophies to help them get a little bit better each week. So today, I will do a formal introduction. We've got Roy Moss. Roy is the owner of Empire Business Solutions. Roy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. And Roy, you and I have known each other for a while, and we know that Empire Business Solutions. Well, first off, tell me a little bit about Empire Business Solutions, and tell our audience a little bit about Empire Business Solutions and how'd you get into that business and what's going on there.
Empire Business Solutions is one of the leading business brokers, M&A specialists in Southern California. And we've been around for over 10 years now and got into the business because I've owned 5 businesses in the past, and from manufacturing to service to retail. And the last business I sold, I went to work for the buyer and found out that I was not the best employee possible. So I went out and was searching for another business to buy and found out there's a whole industry that does this. And I was attracted to it because I thought I could relate to the sellers that are exiting their business, because one of the businesses I exited, there was some issues in selling it. So I thought I could relate very easily to buyers and sellers.
So 10 years, right? And what's your experience? Has your theory concept proven out to be true?
Well, it started out very successfully until we hit the Great Recession. And during the Great Recession, there was a downturn in businesses overall. A lot of people wanted to exit their business, but couldn't get the valuations that they wanted. And so they have hung on through the recession, and now valuations are going up, and we're seeing a lot of sellers come to the market because basically they want to retire, or some other event is coming into play to have them exit their business.
So the marketplace has finally turned around a little bit, and so I'll ask you, and is this the time? Is this the time in the marketplace? Is this the time in the economy where sellers that are interested should really be bringing their businesses to market?
Actually, there hasn't been a better time since the 2007 and 2008 to sell your business. And the reason being is that there are a host of buyers out there looking for good businesses. And this, combined with low interest rates and the stock market hitting its highs, so people have net worth that they can pour into a new business. So right now we have a ton of activity going on with a lot of buyers looking for good businesses. So if sellers are holding off, they should possibly consider getting into the marketplace now, because the conditions will change in the not too distant future.
So when we talked earlier, we talked about the conditions. Potentially the changing conditions could be interest rates, right? So because in a lot of cases we need high quality interest rates to be able to acquire businesses.
Interest rates are a key factor, and obviously they're going to go up here sometime, who knows when, but sometime probably this year. Another thing that is also impacting the market is that we have a lot of people retiring. The baby boomer wave, who, if they own businesses, at some point want to exit, and so we have a huge number of sellers that will be entering the market probably in the next 3 to 5 years. So we could have a whole lot of businesses for sale, which would then turn it into a buyer's market instead of a current seller's market.
So under that way of thinking, it's better to, if you're going to go, if you're ready to exit, then it's better to go now than it is to wait 3 or 4 or 5 years. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yes. That's what they're predicting. Obviously, right now there's just a lot of activity on buyer and sellers positions. So now is a great time. It is, as we say in our industry, it's the golden age of the business broker industry.
Well, at least another one, right? There's been previous ones, I hope, but you're in the middle of another one. The other thing that we thought would really be helpful having you on the show today is not only to share some information, obviously, about It's Time to Sell Your Business, but we'll also be able to share, what you see in the marketplace. So often we have a guest on and we talk about how can we help them be more effective with their particular business. But we're going to take a little different approach today, and we're going to talk about what are you seeing in the marketplace? What are you seeing from business owners as what maybe their biggest or most frequent challenges are?
Okay, so when we look at taking a business to market, we're looking for, in the ideal case, revenues increasing, so that versus decreasing. If you have decreasing revenues, that's always a red flag for a buyer. So we're looking for stable or increasing revenues, and also profitability that are associated with those increasing revenues.
And we had talked briefly about one of the challenges with a small business is that the business owner is the business. And because they are the business, it makes it more difficult because, they're responsible for delivering products and services and sales and marketing and everything. It makes it challenging for them to be able to manage and operate and sort of be the owner of the business.
Yeah, owners that want to sell their business and they are the business are one of the most difficult ones to sell, because the buyer either has to have that skill set or he's going to have to bring in a manager with that skill set to replace the owner. And if he has to hire somebody to do that, that really brings down their valuation, because then your bottom line earnings are going forward are going to be less, and therefore your valuation is going to be less. So the challenge for most owners is to not only run the business effectively, increasing the revenues, but try to bring in some what I call infrastructure or management that could stay in place so that the business can continue on with a new buyer without having to replace the owner, which if he is it truly the business itself.
So in a sense, building a high-functioning, high-performance team to run the business for you, so that if you want to sell the business, you can sell it, and you don't have to necessarily go with it, or even if you wanted to take a vacation, at least the business continues to run.
Correct.
All right, so if we say that's the big challenge, right? And this is classically the challenge that business owners run into, right? They're an individual or a solopreneur, and they got an idea or a concept or a product, and unfortunately, there's only 24 hours in a day. What do you think the number one thing is that stops them from building a team?
So from my perspective, in owning some businesses myself, and as well as dealing with a lot of sellers, is that most of them are so tied up in the day-to-day activity that they're not sitting back and strategizing on how to move forward and also build in this team that was necessary to grow the business. Because when you're bringing in other people, you're also adding new ideas and new energy to the business. And the owner oftentimes needs that, because if he's working 60, 70 hours a week, he's also running into the wall where he gets burned out. So bringing on new employees with new ideas can often energize the business, as well as get the owner off so he can spend some spare time, strategizing about where he's going and how he's going to get there.
So is the owner spending more of his time operating in the business? Is revenue generation the number one thing you think, or is it time management that you think needs to be that the new startup or the young business owner, and when I say young, doesn't mean that they're physically young, but they're young to running a business. Is it time management or revenue generation do you think is the most important factor that needs to be addressed in order to ultimately be able to build your team and run the business like a business?
Well, obviously, the owner wants to have increasing revenue, so that is obviously an important part if you're going to go to market. And the other situation is that he should have to manage his time in order to bring in new people. By managing his time so that he's getting the results in maybe a shorter period of time allows him also to bring in other people. So it's probably a combination of both, but most owners are revenue oriented versus time management oriented.
Well, okay, so let's talk about revenue-centric ideas, right? We'll go over this thing called the Way to Wealth formula. I'm going to take over the screen here in a minute and share a set of slides. We'll go over that, and understanding that there are six components that we look at in trying to improve to generate more revenue. Not just sales revenue, but actually bottom line profits, right? That's really at the end of the day what we're looking for. And so we'll go over this formula with that. And then at the same time, we could say, listen, maybe we'll talk a little bit after it about where you think the business owner needs to spend more of his time and how he might allocate his time more effectively along these revenue generating cycles so that they could get where they want to go faster. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to see if I can't do a little screen share here. Sometimes we're better at it than others. Let me try and see if I can't figure out how I want to do this. Okay. I think I got it almost there. Okay, so at the top of this, you should see this thing that says Way to Wealth and 3 everyday formulas. And I didn't introduce our producer, JB's running the show from the office back there in Irvine. And JB, because we're on location, I just want to make sure that you're seeing this slide.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Also, for those of you that are on the line, we do have the Q&A feature enabled. So if you have any questions about what we're talking about here, you'd like us to address them on the air, then enter those in using the Q&A feature, and JB will post those to me, and Roy and I will try to answer your questions. All right, so with the Way to Wealth, there are 3 everyday formulas. So there's the customers, how many customers do we have, and how do we get more customers? There's the revenue, which is really about how much money are we making, right? And then ultimately there's the profit. How much money do we get to put in our pocket? Now this is all from Brian Tracy's book, The Way to Wealth. Business Wit is a focal point franchise. We're powered by Brian Tracy, and so we have access to all of these materials. It's really pretty amazing. All right, so here's the customer formula. The customer formula says, hey, take the number of leads that you have. In this case, we're going to talk about 50. And multiply it by the success rate. How many of those leads actually get converted to customers, right? And so these are the first 2 key components, is the number of leads and the number of your success rate, or what we call your conversion rate. So if we have 50 leads and we have a 20% conversion rate, we get 10 customers, right? If we get better at generating leads, we'll have more customers. If we get better at converting those leads into customers, we'll have more customers. If we could get better at both of those, we'll have even more customers, right? So that's the customer formula. We'll talk about the regular. So we take the number of customers, right, that came from the previous formula, and we take a look at the average sale size. In this case, we're going to use 1,000 because it's an easy number to work with. Now, one of the things I run into when I present this to others is that the sale size. People say, well, there is no average sale size. Well, I know that you don't sell the same thing for $10 every time. The way you calculate average sale size is you take a look at the total number of sales, the total value of sales over a period of time, and you divide it by the number of sales. That's the average, right? And so that's a number that we can calculate, and that's a number that we want to try and increase, right? And then we take a look at the sales per period. How often are we selling something in that particular month, or in that particular period of time? So this is an example of 3. So if our average sale size is $1,000 and we have sales per period of 3, then we're going to have revenue of $30,000. Now, a couple things that we look at from an average sales size, and we're trying to increase the sales. Think in terms of the fast food industry and the supersize model, right? That's how they increase the average sale. Would you like fries and a Coke with that? That's the classic understanding of increasing average sale size. Then we take a look at sales per period. How do we get people in here to buy a little bit more frequently? You know, that's where you get the loyalty programs and the frequent buyer certificates and the coupons and things like that. Those are different ways that we increase the sales per period. But you can see that if we increase the sales size or the sales per period, that our revenue would increase. All right, so the last part of this is the gross profit formula. So, right, your revenue in this case is $30,000. We take a look at the cost of goods sold, and these are the products and services that you have to buy so that you can resell. And that's a percentage. That's typically a percentage of revenue. And if we subtract that out, then we'll end up with what we call a gross profit number. Okay, so we have $30,000 revenue, minus 50% gives us $15,000 in gross profit. And ultimately, I think I might have missed something here. Apologize for my slide. Maybe there's a piece that I'm missing. All right, so we got back to the gross profit slide. So the next piece of it would be at a gross profit. This is how much money you're going to be making from a profit standpoint. From here, you could subtract your operating costs, and again, operating cost is often done as a function of revenue or a function of gross profit. So you've got an operating cost of 50%, and your net profit would be $7,500. So understanding this model and how it works and how you can affect the gross profit, let's take a look at how this might look in a chart or a graph if we look at it a little bit over time, right? So if we take this revenue formula over outcomes over a year, you can see where if we were to increase the number of customers and the average sale amount and the actual sales numbers, we can grow this sales value from $30,000 originally to, if we just increase each of those activities by 5%, it's a pretty small amount, right? 5%, how many customers would that mean? 5% would be, $50 on the average sale amount. We can actually grow this thing up to a fairly healthy number. A 10% growth in customers, average sale, and number of sales would equal a 33% increase in revenue. So when we talk about time, where does somebody spend their time? Because time is the great equalizer. We've only all got 24 hours. And if revenue is the key component, then these are the areas that we want to spend time on. All right, and if we took a look at over 3 years, you could see what might happen from a revenue standpoint. Right, 10% growth year over year in customers' average sale number and sales would equal a 95% increase in revenue. So you can see where focusing in on these particular items and categories might make the key component, right? And so Roy, I'm going to jump off of the slides here and go back to, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm not certain I'm doing this right. So John, are you still seeing the slides?
No, it looks good.
Okay, so you got me again. Okay, Roy, so basically understanding those formulas and stuff, right? And understanding your knowledge and understanding of the market and your customers, what are some of the things that you think your customers or business owners should focus on the most? Where do you think you would point them?
You make some great points there. We try to get the customers to get into either new markets so you can find new customers. Obviously, retention of customers is a whole lot cheaper than procuring new customers, so you got to pay attention to that. Another aspect of it is, which adds value to a business, is what we call recurring revenues. So if a business can demonstrate that the customers that they have, and there's a certain portion of them that have signed up for recurring revenues, that adds valuation to the business. But increasing revenues, and therefore the bottom line, is going to improve valuations.
So when you talk about retention, that really has to do with the revenue formula, right? That's the average sale amount, right? And in our existing customers, we want them to come and buy and buy and buy again every month, every week, every day. And so you think in this particular case that focusing on areas of retention. Now again, we like to build new customers. I mean, the original, the first formula is the customer formula. How do we get new customers? But there are different statistics that say it's 5 times as much energy and effort to create a new customer as it is to keep an existing customer. And clearly, all we did was focus in on making sure that we kept our existing customers and that they continued to buy a similar amount on a frequency basis, or if we could figure out a way to improve our products and services or add new products and services to where they could buy more, or again, if they were to come into the shop more frequently. You think those are the 2 areas that would make the most sense? If a business owner was looking at it, that would maybe have the biggest impact on their valuation.
Correct, and that's what buyers are looking for. Is what is the advertising that's currently being done, and how effective is it, and what is it costing? So buyers are going to look at how they're obtaining new customers and how they are also retaining the old customers. So buyers will be looking at that aspect of a seller's business.
So clearly, enhancing products and services and putting together loyalty programs, right, that retain clients, that retain existing customers. You think those are some of the most important, most valuable components to engage right away, and basically to kind of lock that up and make that bulletproof as quickly as possible. Because advertising, sometimes a lot of the advertising is driven towards getting new customers.
Yeah, the advertising is driven toward new customers, but some of it, when let's say a constant contact type of approach, is for retention of new customers, and also maybe getting existing customers into a new product or a new service also, which we consider advertising is that type of email notifications. But retention is important, and it makes your growth a lot quicker when you can hit upon getting more new customers in a fairly short period of time.
All right, so now we're coming to the most challenging part of the show. I'm sorry? Now we're coming to the most challenging part of the show, Roy, where I'm gonna ask you to come up with what you think the 3 action items are that a small business owner should take to improve their valuation.
So quality of earnings is an important aspect. By quality of earnings, what we mean is there are a lot of add backs into the P&L. Is there a lot of personal expenses being taken out of the business? Are you actually prepping the business to be sold and having good, clean books? A second one would be verification of the earnings. And the third one would be what are the prospects going forward for those earnings? Are they sustainable?
So understanding those are the key components of valuation. Demonstrating that you have financial efficacy is certainly very important. But when it comes to generating more revenue, which is one of the keys that we say, hey, listen, they need to generate more money so that they can bring their staff on board so they can run the business, right? When it comes to generating that, what kind of action items might you come up with?
Would you repeat that, please? I didn't quite catch it all.
Okay, so in terms of the topic that we were dealing with, which is the Way to Wealth formula. Now, I clearly understand that having your books in order and having the financials in order make a lot of sense when it comes to business valuation. But one of the challenges we said is that these business owners get wrapped up in the business and they're able to operate on the business, right? And we thought generating more revenue is the key. And if we say generating more revenue is the key, then we looked at the formula and we said, okay, retaining existing customers is bullet item number 1, right? So let's take a different approach here. If you look at the customers or the clients you've dealt with recently, what are some of the retention rates? What are some of the best ways that they're going about retaining customers? What would you suggest to our audience as opportunities or best opportunities to retain customers?
Retention of customers has various factors to it. You got to deliver, first off, a good quality product. Second, you got to offer it. You got to be able to deliver it in a timely fashion that meets the customer's expectations. And the third thing is, what are your customers looking for? And oftentimes you can go back to the existing customers with something new, and that in itself can grow your business without having to go in and obtain a lot of new customers. So listening to your customers and what they want leads to customer retention, good communications with them, and good quality product and service.
Well, so I think your concepts are really, really solid there. But when we talk about delivering quality products and services on time, right, we want to measure that stuff, make sure that we're able to do that consistently and more effectively, and then continuing to stay in touch with those customers, maybe putting together a loyalty program of some sort that would allow them to understand our appreciation for them being customers, continuous customers, and then coming and approaching them with new ideas, products, and services to make their businesses more effective on a frequency basis would again increase our ability to retain customers. Does that sound like a good paraphrase?
Yes, excellent.
All right. So Roy, I really appreciate you coming online today. We're right at the end of our time. We're going to push this out onto YouTube a little bit later this afternoon, and we'll give you a copy of the video so that you can share it. And I really appreciate the time and the energy and the knowledge that you brought to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
All right, guys. Take care.